Okay. Shall we kick it off? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Heather Goh, Head of Customer and Marketing for HSBC Malaysia, who will be moderating the Technology, Media and Telecommunications breakout room. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. Technology must be something of interest. We're seeing a lot of the attendees today in the session now. And as we all know it is an important driving force for businesses and consumers today. And if there's one key takeaway from the pandemic that we've experienced in the last year, is that technology has become far more essential than we ever thought it was. In fact, some even described it as a lifeline for businesses and communities. And this has been a major driving force for many digital transformations that happened in 2020. So now in 2021, we have seen even more businesses move beyond just digital transformation and leveraging on tech tools to drive scalability. Scale and speed, it's so important for us to deliver the My Digital Blueprint's ambition to transform Malaysia into the regional powerhouse for digital economy. So in today's session, you will have the opportunity to tap into the great minds of digital leaders from top corporates on the evolving digital landscape and how impending technology such as 5G connectivity will become the game changer for businesses in the future. So you see this little bottom check box. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll pick it up as we go along. Maybe we'll kick things off. Let me introduce our distinguished panelists today. We have first Puan Surina Shukri, who is no stranger to us. She's the Chief Executive Officer of Malaysia Digital Economy Corporation, MDEC, and she brings with her 2 decades of diverse experience across various global multinationals, media market companies, and early stage startups. Puan Surina has recently been named among the world's 50 most influential people revolutionizing governance in the Agile 50 list. Good morning, Puan Surina. Good to have you here.
Good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Next up, we have Mr. Chan Kok Long, Executive Director of iPay88 and Mobile88.com. He is one of the key founders of iPay88 and also won numerous accolades himself. Mr. Chan has been working across various customers, partners, and agencies and is instrumental in shaping the e-commerce landscapes locally in Malaysia and across the region. Good to see you again, Mr. Chan.
Hi, happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us today. So last but definitely not the least, we have Encik Khairil Abdullah, Chief Executive Officer of Axiata Digital, the digital services arm of Axiata Group Berhad. At Axiata Digital, Khairil leads investments and operations across the 3 strategic businesses from e-wallets, micro-lending, micro-insurance to digital advertising and platform services, managing flagship brands that we're very familiar with, which is Boost, Aspirasi, Axiata Digital Advertising, and Epigate. Welcome, Encik Khairil.
Hi everyone.
Hi, good to have you. So good morning and welcome again, everyone. Maybe just to kick off the conversation on the broader level, we can start off with one question that's probably on everyone's mind. So to our panelists, do you think we're there yet in terms of digitalization for scalability, and what's our readiness for 5G? Do you think we need more time? So you want to take on? Yeah, go ahead.
Let me just share a couple of things to set the context. So clearly, everybody on this call, we're no strangers to recognizing how the pandemic has really affected us. And so now we all can see, thanks to the pandemic, we all live in a digital by default world. And so what exactly transpired? So I'll just share a couple of stats. And so what we saw post-pandemic is on the consumer side, we saw 5 years worth of consumer digitalization all crammed into 1 year. So we saw a significant increase on the consumer digitalization side. Consumers all now more willing to transact online, use all these digital tools and whatnot. At the same time, we also saw about 2 years worth of business digitalization also crammed up into 1 year. So a lot more businesses coming forward and really starting down on their digital journey. We also saw the government's effort to also to outline this digital blueprint, which is really a holistic whole of government type of approach to say, digital is really important. And so let's all get on this bandwagon, because we all really need to not just develop digital technology, but more importantly, drive adoption across the spectrum. So the digital blueprint talks about making sure that we have a holistic enabling infrastructure. So everything from connectivity to 5G and whatnot, making sure that that we focus on the skilling agenda, because we need digital Malaysians to make sure that we've got digital Malaysia. And of course, businesses needs to be digital too. Now, are we there yet? Of course not. I think we're just getting started. And in fact, when we think about technology, you're never really going to be there, because the minute that you get to IR 4.0, there are people already starting to talk about 6G. So there's always that change. But the good news is that there's a lot of momentum now. And I'll talk a little bit about the 4 key areas that we really need to, as corporates go down the path of digital transformation, all the things that they need to do. There are 4 key areas, but I'll let my other colleagues talk a little bit more, and I'll come back to these 4 key areas.
Mr. Chan, you want to share your views?
Okay, to me, how ready we are, the question is, to me, definitely we are ready to embark on 5G. The reason is very simple, because everybody must know 5G is a very huge communication infrastructure. When you talk about infrastructure, it actually needs time to build, to add features, value to the infrastructure. You look at our Malaysian highway, for example. Whatever highway, if you compare to 20, 30 years ago, if the moment 20, 30 years ago, we don't embark on all these North-South highway and all these highway that the governments are building, we will never have such a good highway. You know, I'm sure a lot of us, when we travel back home to our hometown, our Plus Highway, the North-South Highway, is one of the best in the world. The reason is very simple, is very lively, is always there are lights on all the way along the highway, and at the same time you have a lot of other facilities like petrol stations, the restaurants, rest place, and so on and so forth. Now, likened to 5G is also similar. The government or the country must start to implement 5G infrastructure now, so that in years to come, our 5G will continue to improve, mature, and build on consumer requirements. And I'm very glad that the government has started, like what Puan Surina mentioned, the digital blueprint. Now, digital blueprint, you need such an infrastructure like 5G. Without a huge 5G infrastructure, a lot of digital initiative as well as initial digital vision, I don't think it is able to fulfill. Therefore, my take is we must start the 5G communication infrastructure now. Whether we start at a very minimal level or we start at moderate, this doesn't matter. The most important is we must play with the technology. Back to you, Heather.
Thanks, Mr. Chan. What about you, Kari? What do you think?
So as the only speaker on the panel that effectively represents a mobile communications company, look, I would definitely agree with the other panelists. I think we need to build it, and we did build it now. There is often a mantra in telcos that we say, build it and they will come. And in this case, it's particularly true, but not for the reasons that are often cited, right? So let me explain what I mean. I would actually posit that the pandemic reduces the need for 5G. You still want to build it, but it actually reduces the need for 5G. And what I mean by that is, look, we all know that 4G is hitting its limits in terms of meeting consumer needs, especially with content consumption on the go, whether it's, your Netflix, your YouTube, watching videos on social media. 5G, obviously, with greater speeds and with higher bandwidth, can actually solve these congestion problems. But here's the thing, with the pandemic, we're actually staying at home a lot more. So we actually need better access to fiber internet, not necessarily 5G internet, right? So fiber to the home is, we all know it's able to deliver speeds of 1 gigabits and above, whereas 5G typically delivers at about 100 megs, right? And so what we're looking for in the short term is actually more fiber internet, not necessarily 5G type connectivity. But I would say that we still need to invest because we do want to stay ahead of the seismic shift that I think is coming with 5G. And that seismic game changer, if you like, is really centered around enabling the Internet of Things, right? We've been talking about the Internet of Things for a good sort of 5, 6, 7 years now, and haven't really sort of materialized. But that's because there's never been a network and infrastructure that can support that. 5G is a low latency network, which basically means that there's very little lag time from the time you send a signal to a self-driving bus to stop, to avoid colliding into a child crossing the street, to the time that it actually stops, right? Because you need that kind of low latency when you're dealing with autonomous vehicles, for example. 5G is also a massive MIMO network, allowing 1 million devices to be connected in 1 square kilometer, right? Which basically means that not just all our phones will be connected, but also our digital wallets, our fitness and health trackers, our shipments, our deliveries, our electronic signboards, anything, everything, right? And so I'll give you an example. As a comparison, the Axiata Group operates in Bangladesh. The capital city of Bangladesh, Dhaka, has one of the highest population densities in the world at 25,000 people per square kilometer. 5G can connect 1 million devices per square kilometer. So literally everything. So I agree with Chan, I agree with Serena. I think we do want to invest behind this network because it can then spearhead a lot of innovation and create new economic sectors, much like what we saw in South Korea in the late 90s when they started pioneering fiber broadband.
So if I can add to that, Khairul, that's an excellent segue because I mentioned 4 key areas that we need to think about in order to drive this momentum. So typically when we think about digital, when we think about tech, we normally just think about just that tech part. And we like to think of this as it's the technology journey, it's digital journey. So of course today we're all very focused on digitalization in general. So which means companies are very focused on right now digitalizing their front end. So how do you engage with your customers? How do you do e-commerce? How do you do all of that stuff? The next step is how do you digitalize your middle office? To your data and coming up with these. And then after that enables you to really then start thinking about the innovation. There's that text that's required along your digital journey, your front end, middle end, and then your innovation. That's where all the exciting fun. Number 2, it's the data. Your data maturity, the way that they think about when you go into this new world, you an ad hoc data part organization that's thinking driven decision because you innovation. So in addition to all these infrastructure that we're building, like we really need to start thinking across these 4 journey, your data journey, your risk management journey, and of course your own team agility journey. So yeah.
One more thing, strategically for Malaysia to become the leader for digitalization in this region, 5G is the foundation of what Serena mentioned about all this journey. Now, you need a foundation, a platform where it actually enable all this journey to be in motion, in action. Yeah, we definitely will embark on the 5G. Looking forward for that. Thank you.
Is Heather frozen?
I don't know. Can you hear me? Hello?
I think we've lost Heather.
Serena, you can hear us, except head.
I can hear you.
I'll continue to talk since I think.
Yeah. So questions that's being asked about, like I really do think.
And some of the thought. What are your thoughts, right, in driving more efficiency for customers when it comes to payments? I see. Yeah, Mr. Chan, you're back.
Yeah, no.
Actually, you were all around, Heather. We lost you.
Was it me? I saw you were frozen for a little bit. I thought it was the connection. Sorry. I think today's connection is quite weird. Where was I just now?
Something about payment.
Yeah, so I think I was writing on the fact that point Serena mentioned earlier in her earlier point about doing the building the digital journey, right, which is one of the core foundations, and obviously the key piece around delivering the My Digital Blueprint in the first phase, right? And you guys touch a lot about infrastructure and all this. So, so deep diving into payments, I wanted to get Mr. Chan's views as well. In the last year with the electronic payments landscape growing so much, and a lot of the businesses are in a way forced into going into the e-commerce space, right? So, what are your views in terms of looking at driving more efficiency for customers in the space of digital payments?
Okay, first of all, I would like to use the highway and why the payment landscape doesn't give a lot of priority to user experience, like people are talking about seamless experience. The reason is best is likened like a highway, right? Especially because of COVID-19, like what Serena mentioned, the 4 years or 5 years digital plan is all being crammed into one. Now, obviously, the needs to actually conduct digital transaction, digital payment, there's a surge in such needs. One of the major surge we see, digital payment doesn't come from just e-commerce merchants or e-commerce companies. It also comes from the physical retails like the F&B or even the fashion, shopping mall, and so on and so forth. And the bigger part and that actually in Malaysia start to embark on the digital payment journey. Now that obviously, like highway, there's so much demand for cars to travel from point A to point B. So instead of building a highway, adding in a lot of features, putting in instead of a petrol station, we are building a 5-star hotel. We build out entertainment center along the highway to make sure the user really enjoy the journey from point A to point B. The priority now is build more highway. Like for example, user already moved beyond credit card as the major mean of digital payment methods. You look at how internet banking, the spike in usage of internet banking, and you ask Kyril from BoostPay how much e-wallet adoption. So users, including the non-millennial, the mature people like myself and Kyril, we are in Gen X, and we start to
Gen Z, man. I'm Gen Z.
Gen Z. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't know that you are 20 over years old. So imagine even the rural area, the uncle, the aunties, they start to adopt digital payments thanks to wallet players like Boost and the other wallet in the industry. Now they actually spend a lot of time and invest a lot of resources to actually educate the area, not consumer, to payments. Therefore, now instead of one highway from north-south, from north to south, now you need multiple north-south highway, and then you also need more highway at the coastal, linking peninsula to Sabah, Sarawak, and so on and so forth. Current stage is at this stage where we need more infrastructure, payment infrastructure, enable the corporate front, the retail front, in the online, any terminology you can use. Payment now is already entered the stage of what we call omni-channel. As any touch point with the consumer, any gadget, especially digital gadget, you can turn that digital gadget into a payment touch point. Simple as that. Now, as the player in the industry, I am the banks, the payment gateway, the wallet players, they spend and invest a lot of time building up all this payment infrastructure. Now, instead of making the user experience become seamless, where you just walk into and you don't even need to flash out your card, or the camera can actually capture who you are, and straight away the moment you pick up things, like you just leave the shop and you already make the payment. That user experience, digital payment. I need terminals. I need the merchant will continue to ask people like Kyril and say, hey, I need your digital wallet payment. I need a terminal. I need this infrastructure apps. So the now is building up all this infrastructure rather than investing into all this seamless experience, user experience. Now, bear in mind, seamless experience also need a Imagine if there's a latency like what Kyril mentioned. The moment the camera captures and that information didn't go to the server that actually verify who you are, your identity, and so and so, or it takes in seconds. Not wait. So every transaction had to conduct in nanoseconds, and in order to do that, find all these super user experience and the requirements to make a payment journey, especially digital journey, into a seamless and very powerful experience to the consumer. Therefore, my take is now the player in this ecosystem, we are investing a lot of R&D in how to enable payment in different industry, how to enable payment in different gadget, in different touch point. Now, I give you one example. We are enabling even photoset machine. You know, your digital panel. Any digital panel that link to internet, you can turn that digital panel into a payment touch point. So a lot of effort is actually putting into enabling all these touch points to accept digital payment. Therefore, Heather, my view is it will take another 2 to 3 years. Then when very reasonably and a lot of games supporting the 5G, you see, it's all question of the quantity. You know, if there is a quantity to the 5G infrastructure, then the cost of implementing good user experience will be brought even much lower, and then it will be very affordable to provide such features to the consumer. So I'll see that give another 2 to 3 years, then you will start to see user experience will set in. It's like in the highway, you will start to see very nice while you're traveling back from Kuala Lumpur to Penang. If you feel a bit tired.
Yeah, riding on the point of what Kyril said, right? Build it and it will come, right?
Yeah, because Rome never built overnight.
Yeah.
So you have to start building it, and we need that 5G to enable us to invest in R&D. How this touch point coupled with 5G enable this user experience. So back to you, Heather. I think it's just a matter of time. Is build more highways rather than build 5-star hotel along the highway, so that more people will get to travel point A to point B. So that is my point. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Mr. Chan. I like the highway analogy, and I think that pieces up the what Serena mentioned earlier, right? Is really looking at the digital journey, building the foundations right, data in so that you get the right investments to improve the user experience as we go along, making sure that there's the risks and the governance piece. And I think more importantly, it's along this whole entire journey, building the future of digital leaders from Malaysia as well. So and we improve and get better along the way, right? So I think that's a very interesting point, and there's a lot of examples. Maybe next up, in Chicago, there's a lot of success stories over the years with 3 e-wallet platforms in Malaysia. You have Appygate, and also the API platform provider, and also the ADA success stories in the digital marketing space. A lot on data solutions as well. So with the arrival of super apps, so what's your thoughts, or what's Axiata Digital's views on how digital will transform the way we work, and even how we day-to-day lives in the near future?
So I actually don't think that the arrival of the behind how the changes that we're seeing in terms of the way we live and work, right? Funnily enough, Serena said, I think one of the biggest triggers, of course, is actually the pandemic. And I know people are tired of hearing about the pandemic. I'll come out to that in a second, but let me touch on super apps for maybe 30 seconds, right? So whilst the term super app is becoming commonplace, actually most industry players foresee the consolidation of apps, sort of 3, 4, 5 years ago. And maybe to explain that, here's some data points. Based on some of the research that we've done last year, on average, Malaysians spend about 2 hours per day online, right? From 2016, back then it was only about 4 hours per day, so 9 hours per day. An average person, the apps on their smartphone, after the conference, by the way, but on a daily basis, probably, which would include the usual at the social media, browsing, video streaming, music streaming, gaming, e-commerce. But the problem is the average person struggles to juggle more than those 9 apps within the 9.2 hours per day. So as use cases come about, as more and more new apps, we kind of foresaw that more and more of those will have to go through those 9 apps, right? And therefore, the trend actually started sort of 3, 4, 5 years ago. It's not a new phenomenon. The phenomenon we saw. The pandemic, by the way, as I think as Serena said, the compression of the growth of 5 years within 1 year, that's the one that has actually kind of given a massive shift to our industry. One of the most exciting things that we saw last year was that 30 million digital consumers came on board in Southeast Asia. We obviously operate across Southeast Asia. So 30 million new digital consumers come on board. That's like, a market size, the size of the Malaysian population suddenly just popped up. And what did that mean for us? That meant that our business, sort of exploded, right? Chan talked about our e-wallet business. That business doubled in terms of the users that we had. But what's more interesting is that for our active users, the average usage per week is now standing at about above 400 ringgit per week. So that what that means is that every active user that we have is actually using it more than 400 ringgit per week. The digital advertising business that we have, recognizing that consumers have shifted online, a lot of our clients in that digital advertising business has increased business with us. And we ended up the year growing our profits by 7x, right? Profits by 7x, it's unbelievable. And we think that this pandemic is causing these shifts, but it's also creating a lot of new opportunities, right? So here within Axiata Digital, as a as a venture builder of so many different businesses, we're now looking at new opportunities, right? And it could be in the health segment, it could be in the edutech segment, but the pandemic is creating all these new opportunities because we strongly feel, and I believe Point Serena will echo this as well, that the post-pandemic new norm, it's a digital first new norm. It has to be.
Great. Thanks. So maybe to the panelists, we'll take one of the questions, just looking at time as well. So I do see two questions that's in the chat, primarily talking about, since we cover 5G at the start, what can private sector or government do to increase network speed? That seems to be out of the two questions, a commonality that's coming across. And the efficiency on lower price compared with the other countries in ASEAN. So maybe, Karel, you want to take this question?
Sure.
Being, from the telco.
Sure. So yeah, by definition, 5G is a higher throughput, i.e. higher speed network than 4G. I'm reading through the question here. I think some of the frustration there is, people are getting, what do you call it? 1 bar while they're sitting smack in Bangsar and whatnot. Actually, 5G solves that, right? Because, with 4G, 4G can touch 4,000 devices per square kilometer. So if you imagine that if you're in Bangsar, Lucky Garden, Bukit Damansara, there's going to be a lot more devices that needs to be covered than just 4,000 within that 1 square kilometer. 5G, as I said before, it covers 1 million devices per square kilometer. So we reduce that congestion. Plus 5G does something called spotlighting as opposed to floodlighting, right? It's a little bit technical, but basically what it means is it finds you, it finds your devices, and it stays with your devices to ensure that there is no sort of drop, if you like, within your coverage, right? So in that sense, then 5G solves it. Last point about the cost, on a cost per gigabyte basis, obviously 5G is going to deliver much lower costs on a per gigabyte basis than 4G. Your bill might not go down because your consumption is probably going to go up with those kind of speeds.
Yeah. Thanks, Karel. There's one interesting question that I see when I was scrolling through as well, and that's actually one of the questions I have in my list. Maybe, from Mr. Chan and also Point Serena's perspective, this particular question looks at, can you available from soft skill, to getting tools ready for 4G or 5G. And I think like what Karel mentioned earlier on enabling IoT services as well.
Okay, maybe I want to share this. Actually, if you mention about health, in Malaysia, we are actually very blessed. The government agency, the non-profit organization, even corporate like HSBC. See, webinar like this is one of the area where people, even the corporate, are participating in how to help people to go into digital transformation and digitalization. I am very, very sure MDEX have full of agenda of how to help go into transformation, helping grants, and MDEX actually work with many the ecosystem, including people, booths, and there are so many participate in a lot of events organized by MDEC. Beside MDEC, there are also events organized by MITI. There are also a lot of events by people like SME Association. There are many associations trying to help a lot of SME. Besides just going domestic e-commerce or domestic digitalization, there are associations like Malaysia Cross-Border E-Commerce Association. What this association is doing is how to help the smaller SME. The big boys know how to do cross-border, whether it's exporting, importing. This Malaysian Cross-Border E-Commerce Association, what they do is their charter is to ensure the smaller brand, the pachit or machit that did the a small industry, in the kampong and all this. They got good products and there are a lot of demand for such product, but they don't know how to export this, the logistic, how to handle the logistic, the approval, and so on and so forth. So this association actually helped them A to Z to help them to actually market it out of Malaysia. And at the same time, there are a lot of initiative. I've been working with Boost Pay, Boost Chiral, a company many times, where we actually run many campaigns to actually help smaller SME to embark on the digital transformation into giving a lot of benefits. We waive a lot of fees for this smaller SME to join into the bandwagon. And there are time people like Boost actually investing a lot of money to help these smaller. Imagine the micro SME. They don't even really know how to embark on digital, especially digital payment. And people like Boost actually invest a lot of money to actually guide them, help them, to give them the assurance that, hey, the benefits of digitalizing your businesses. And all it takes is my message to all the audience who want to start your digitalization journey. All it takes is help, ask for the help. And there are so many people, there are so many agencies. Look at Magic, another platform by the government. And they will help even the startups. Their charter is more towards startups. As long as you want to embark in this journey, there's always help. Now, I have businesses all across Southeast Asia. People are very envy about country like Indonesia. They got a huge population. The market size is huge. But the amount of support by the government, by the NGO, by the agency, by the corporate, is nothing compared to Malaysia. So I always use the word we are very blessed. Even the central bank like Bank Negara come out with a lot of initiative to help people to go digitalization. So all it takes is ask for, start off with. You have Puan Surina here. And point out here in this forum is even people like us, IPA, we have benefited so much by participating in MDEC event. One of the event or the department that MDEC has is called the GAIN. GAIN is their charter is to help company like us and other company how to bring IPA to another level, to reach the world, to reach a market outside Malaysia. Something I think what MDEC is doing is thumbs up.
Yeah, maybe Puan Serena, do you want to close off with the last 1-2 minutes with some of the support that MDEC has built as well?
Thank you so much, Chan, for that. But let me just so for the audience that's listening, because it can be overwhelming. Where do you even start? So at MDEC, we think of it in 4 different areas. So it's NADI. So N for new skills. We have a whole division that just focuses on the skilling agenda. A for adoption, so business digitalization. How do you adopt digital? D, disruptors. And so like, how do you make sure that if you're a tech company, how do you continue to disrupt? And then investments. And so investments is a lot of there's a lot of behind the scenes work that's required to make sure that we're a thriving, interesting investment destination for investors. Now, on the new skills part, one of the things that businesses needs to really appreciate is just the whole, what skills are required for the future. And so one of the things you can get started on, we have a digital skills directory. You can go to our website. And so here, not only will you get a sense of what are the new skills required for the jobs of the future, but also direct links. We've curated a directory of training providers where you can go and get access to that. That's one. On the adoption side, understanding where you are on that journey is really important. And so if you've not started yet, okay, you need your web presence. And so how do you go about doing that? If you haven't started digitizing some of your business processes, how do you go about doing that? So we've got like a whole, we've curated some solutions on that too. We've got 437 different technology solution providers that people can go and get access to, so solutions. So we've done some of that work. Otherwise, it's overwhelming. So many different companies out there. And some of we've linked them up to also some of the government funding that's required as well. And so that's on the business adoption side. And if you're a tech company, if you're and you're starting to think about innovation, one of the things that we do is actually connect tech companies with small companies to enable that whole corporate innovation discussion as well. So there's many things, but think of it along those lines: the skilling agenda, the adoption agenda, and then the whole technology disruption agenda.
Thank you, Serena. It seems like the breakout session it's up. The time's up, and I can't believe how time flies. And obviously, we have a very highly engaged audience as well. The questions are still coming in. We probably do need to look at doing another follow-up session, and technology is definitely a huge interest for the audience today as well. So thank you so much. I want to say a huge thank you for joining us. I want to say thank you to the panelists as well for spending time and taking the morning out with us. I hope you guys enjoy the session as much as I do. Thank you and have a great day. We should be sending back. Thank you. We should be sent back to the main room pretty soon. Thanks.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Thank you, guys.